Hello and welcome to the G3 Pulse podcast. Joining me today is Martin Collins, Chief Business Development Officer at Soft2Bet. Martin, thank you very much for coming on.
Hey, thanks for having me, William.
Later on, we'll get into all things ICE and Soft2Bet's motivational engineering application, or MEGA. But firstly, could you just start by telling me and our audience more about your career background and your remit at Soft2Bet?
So I graduated from the University of Glasgow with a Masters and instantly get into the recruitment field, William. And I was in recruitment for many years. In fact, up until 2019, I was still involved with recruitment. From 2006, very early 2006, I became involved in the iGaming space. Prior to that, I had been involved in the construction industry. And although I enjoyed recruitment, I was pretty bored with the industry that I was operating in, all honesty. So I managed to bump into a guy by the name of David Copeland, who ran a recruitment business called Betting Jobs, which still exists. And he said, okay, I can get you involved with an industry that will hanker for your love of sports, for your love of casino, and your love of betting, ultimately. And I took a step into that, and I suppose the rest is history. I worked with him for, I think it was 4 or 5 years, and then he backed me in order to set up my own business called Red Executive, which ran from 2010 to 2019, or 2009 to 2019, almost 10 years we operated. At that stage, the industry was going through a bit of a flux, and we decided to move the business to the side, and I moved across to GIG, to Gaming Innovation Group. And initially I started there as a recruiter, but more and more got involved on the commercial side of the business. First of all, from a business development perspective, and then I took that and also started to lead the sales effort on the B2B side, the platform side at GIG. I was there for 5 years, and I think we did a fairly good job despite some challenges. Being a publicly listed business, the challenges are very different to what I'm experiencing now. And then in October, the opportunity to become CBDO at Soft2Bet came into play. I jumped at the chance. Firstly, it's a business with growth and a business that embraces opportunity. So as a CBDO sales guy, that really sort of plays into my hands, I suppose, because ultimately every day I'm analysing opportunities, whether it be new customers, whether it be new revenue streams, whether it be new markets, whether it be potential acquisitions, whether we might be selling something. It could be anything at all. And me and the team analyse that, look at the viability of it, and ultimately move forward or decide to reject opportunities depending upon what the data tells us. So that's really my remit, ultimately to drive the revenue across the entire B2B side of the business, William.
Well, Soft2Bet is a gargantuan operation in scale and geographic scope. So those business opportunities that you mentioned that yourself and the team has identified, how are you looking to capitalise on those over the coming year?
Okay, so as you probably saw, we have taken steps in 2023 into various regulated markets. And what a lot of companies might do is they might look at ROI on the basis of a customer by customer basis. Whereas what I like to do is actually look at the opportunity in a regulated market as a whole. So that could be B2C, it could be B2B, it could be your different verticals within B2B and the revenue that generates. It could actually ultimately be multiple customers operating in one market that ultimately increases the overall ROI. So I think what you'll see in 2024 is that we'll take our current footprint, regulated footprint, and we'll drive value from what we've already invested in and increase the ROI in each of these markets, whilst also identifying other markets. So how do we identify other markets? I was sat with David Yatom the other day in Cyprus, actually, and he's discovered a great tool for us that ultimately looks at the GDP per capita versus the population. So if you have a medium population but a massive GDP per capita, then that's a big opportunity for us. So what we do is we analyse that and we look at what might be interesting. What lookalikes do we have? What's similar to the markets that we're already in, because we can see growth and value there. And then obviously the bigger picture in terms of cost, complexity, all these elements that come with that. So for sure we'll be investing in other markets moving forward as well, will you?
And of those markets, I've spoken to Gillard on a podcast before, and I've spoken to David Yatton as well. So I've spoken to them both, and they both had interestingly different things to say about the US market. Not to say that they disagreed, but they just had different opinions about when when Soft2Bet should have entered the market versus entering now. Was it the right thing to wait? Was it not? What's your assessment of that?
Okay, so it's interesting, right? So I call it first wave and second wave, and I'm not sure the second wave has really hit yet. But what have we seen in the first wave? I think that's where we should probably start. So where are we, and what's happened over the last, I don't know, it was 2013 really, what's happened over the last 10 years in the US? So first of all, sportsbook has outstripped casino, first of all. There's only 6 states where casino is actually legal, whereas I believe there's 38 on sports. And each time one of the states moves to actually to regulate casino, there seems to be blockages to it. Although I did read last week that New York has taken a serious step towards regulation, which is really interesting. I also saw Maryland seems to be taking steps as well. So what do I mean? In this first scenario, what did we have? We had all of the major brands in the US. So let's just talk about the 3 or 4. So you obviously have DraftKings, FanDuel, MGM, Caesars. Those are the 4 main ones. And then you had European players that decided they wanted to go into the market off the bat. So the likes of Kindred, Tipico, 365 have been looking at certain markets. They've been a little bit more conservative. But these are, and what's happened is that they're all trying to get market share. Now, they're trying to get market share without actually driving any margin. The DraftKings results on a quarterly basis themselves are testament to that. I think at last look, they were losing 250k a quarter or something along these lines, right? So you have this situation where they're all trying to get market share, and ultimately there's no ROI for any of the businesses at the moment. Because there's additional competition, the customers are taking advantage of the situation. There's a massive bonus culture. Last year at the Super Bowl, I recall there being, you could get, I think it was $3,000 you could get from DraftKings if you played the bonus game right. So this is the first wave. Now, what inevitably happens is that operationally and technically, you can make improvements in order to drive the businesses towards a more ROI-driven culture. So what do I mean by that? I can only talk from our perspective, really. So let's say that you're FanDuel or your DraftKings, MGM or Caesars, whoever you are, and you are investing X amount of millions on a monthly basis and you're getting 0 ROI. And the customers have accounts with all 4 of you and they play you against each other. That's essentially the way that it is. The question for me, okay, is how do you maintain or grow your share of the market, okay, whilst spending less or spending the same and getting more from the customers that you're actually bringing to the table? And this is where solutions like Mega come into play, William. And this is what I think the second phase within the States will be. I think it will be organisations that approach the market entirely differently. We've seen the movement within sweepstakes and social casino. Some people might argue that's a second phase from a compliance perspective. And yeah, you could argue that for sure. But if we put that to the side, then this second phase, it's going to be solely built on technology. If you look at those 4 players, there's nothing massively unique about their offering. There's nothing that others don't have. They all have the same features. They might have a different brand, a different colour, but ultimately it's the same. What will determine the next 4 or 5 years, along with the increase in casino states, hopefully, is how your product is differentiated against the competition. And for me, a big factor there will be gamification with solutions like Mega, for example. but it could be a myriad of things. It could be how you're interacting from an AI perspective. It could be profile building. It could be so many different things. But I think that's what the second phase will be. So in answer to your original question, did we go in at the right time? I think we absolutely went in at the right time or we're going in at the right time because ultimately our technology does allow you to differentiate in comparison to the competition. And I think that's what our USP will be. And I think it allows not only us, but it allows big players, new players coming into the market to actually differentiate. I think that's key. I think that's exactly what will happen over the next sort of 2 to 5 years, William.
Well, you've touched on it there about Mega. Could you just explain what the platform does to enhance the player experience and drive revenues?
Sure. Okay, so what Mega is ultimately a single API into our gamification solutions. So Mega is motivational engineering, which is essentially a method of building in order to motivate the customer. And obviously the gamification component is what we are motivating the customer with. So if you go onto any of our sites, you'll be able to see a lot of our solutions in action. And we have a myriad because ultimately we build different gamification for different audiences. So if you go to Betinia, you'll see the stadium builder for a sports audience. But on the casino side, we have City Builder. Now, essentially what these games are is that they're journeys for the customer and they get rewards along that journey, essentially. And the data that we've seen has been absolutely... I was even surprised when I came here, the magnitude of the increase in the data. So, for example, your screen time. Screen time is increased by up to 4 times. In fact, we believe now that we're not competing with other sportsbook and casinos. For screen time, we're actually competing with TikTok and Facebook and Instagram and all these types of guys. That's who you're competing with because ultimately it's a battle for screen time. It's not necessarily a battle for gambling dollars.
Yeah.
So these are the off-the-shelf products that you can utilise. But what we're finding is that each of our customers are very, very keen to also build their own bespoke solution. So it's not just a case of buying something off of the shelf. It's actually buying something unique to your audience that will resonate with them and also resonate with your brand. And again, I'll go back to the original point. You can get all this through a single API. So it's not a complex build. It's not something that is going to take a massive amount of time in order to deliver. It's something that's already there. Yes, we'll need to create the design and everything that comes with it and build that into your solution. But ultimately, this is a game changer because nobody can offer this at the moment, will you?
You touched there on the city builder and the stadium. Was it stadium builder and the city planner or vice versa? How exactly do the gamification elements work across casino and sportsbook?
Okay, so let's say, for example, that, first of all, it's entirely configurable, William. Mm-hmm. Okay, so it doesn't need to be the same factors in order to get to a certain point. But let's say that you wanted to take a customer to the next level on the basis of the amount of bets that they'd made, the volume of bets. Okay. Then what would happen is that once you'd hit that volume of bets, you would go into the stadium builder component. Okay, and let's say that you're starting in non-league. All right, you're starting with a shack, like a hill zone town stadium, right? And as you continue to increase the volume of bets and you interact with the stadium builder, you can take those points and you can contribute to a bigger stadium, into a more successful team, if you like. And you can build it right up. So it's like Hampden Park in Glasgow. You notice I didn't say Wembley, William, right?
No, I noticed that.
So you can build it up to be a national stadium and you can be one of the most successful teams in the league, for example, right? So this is, what this ultimately does is, obviously, once you have spent all your points on your stadium, you want to build more, so you go back and you can bet more with the sportsbook. It's exactly the same concept on the casino side with the city builder. And you can build Rome, you can build Athens, you can build whatever, an Egyptian type scenario. You can make it unique to your particular brand. So if you've got an Aztec casino brand, then you can build an Aztec civilization. It can be totally bespoke to your audience. That's very important to understand, William.
And you mentioned before about data, and you were staggered by the amount of data at Soft2Bet's disposal. Now, I'm not asking you to go into what data Gaming Innovation Group and your previous experiences had within their companies, but how are the challenges different? You said that when you were a public company at Gig, and now you're a private company. How did the challenges and expectations of your current role change?
I think it's ultimately who you're accountable to, right? And their appetite for risk. So at Gig, you're accountable to a board and then to a number of shareholders ultimately. And the strategy that is created along with them will define exactly what you can do and what you can't do. Whereas a privately owned business like us, who are very keen on growth, massive growth, you can see that through the numbers that are public, that ultimately we can consider any opportunity. Of course, there's still an appetite for risk, but it's probably not quite as strong as a publicly listed organisation. So we can look at things and we can try and take advantage of it, whereas a publicly listed business might not be able to do so, William. So in terms of the data, I think that's key, and it's key for decision making. But it has to match up with your appetite for risk, and that's the core difference. That's the difference.
And beyond Mega, what other products and innovations will Soft2Bet be showcasing at ICE?
Okay, so interestingly, it's rather than products, let's talk initially about our approach to our delivery of our products. One thing that we want to be sure that we can do is hang our hat on delivery. Throughout the industry, if you ask anybody utilising a third party for feedback, this isn't just in the iGaming industry and sports betting, it's across the globe and within any industry. But delivery is always a bit of a concern, an issue, because ultimately what anybody who's taking a third party they want to hang their hat and be able to invest in that product when it's indicated is going to be the case. Because you might be switching on marketing spend, you might be doing deals prior to a Euros, for example, right? You could be doing all of these different things, William. And if that date isn't delivered, then ultimately your investment is lost. So one thing that we want to do is hang our hat on our delivery. It's something that we've been working on for a long time, ever since we got involved with B2B. And I think that genuinely having come in, 3 months ago, is something that we're very, very proud of. So being able to hang your hat on delivery, although it's not a product, I think it's a key differentiator again, William, and something that I would like people to be aware of. Then we can talk about Sportsbook. So traditionally, what has been the viewpoint externally of Soft2Bet is generally people consider us to be a casino business. But in 2023, we considerably grew the sportsbook side of our organisation, and we will continue to do that again in 2024. I think that our sportsbook offering is easily localised. It's feature driven. It's got a lot of the features that you require, both in North America and Europe, in order to be successful. So the sportsbook component will be a very important factor and something that we'll discuss a lot at ICE. If anybody wants to come and see it in action, please come along. And then ultimately, from all of these things that we're speaking about, and we touched upon this, William, when you mentioned data, personalisation element of our platform is something that is very, very important. So it's all well and good being able to deliver a unique experience to the customer and drive engagement. But if you can't utilise the data that's been created as a consequence of that and deliver a personalised experience to them, depending on what sports they like, what slots they like, what games they like, however they interact with your platform, and then deliver a custom experience towards them, then you're not going to be able to maximise the value that these other products are being delivered. So as a consequence, our data solution within the platform is built in order to be able to deliver these personalised experiences. And again, that's something that you'll see some workshops on at ICE.
And one final question that I think neatly sums up this discussion is you've had your feet under the table for a few months now. What alignment would you say that Soft2Bet has between its product development and its market expansion strategies under the umbrella of the company's overarching business goals? And what room would you say that you've identified and your team's identified for improvement in current operations?
Okay, that's a lot of different questions. So let me sort of break it down a little bit, right? Let me break it down a little bit. So
one final set of questions.
So ultimately, if marketing and product and sales and legal and your entire organization isn't aligned, then you're going to experience issues. So you initially mentioned product development and marketing. I think you can see on the basis of our current marketing strategy that obviously Mega is at the forefront of everything that we're trying to deliver, the message that we're trying to push forward. And the simple reason for that is that we think it's a genuine game changer, and it's something that can enhance everybody's business within regulated markets. So everybody knows that if you go into a regulated market, that it's difficult to make money. You need to have critical mass. You need to have your user journey and along with your CRM and your acquisition flow. It all has to be purring in order to be able to get to that profitable point. But what we are saying is that we can create a solution that will give you a bigger ROI than you're experiencing now. So that this started off as a product vision and has now progressed into a marketing vision. And then obviously you see the sales component running alongside both of those. So yes, I do believe that there is alignment between the product and the marketing component. Now, you asked what challenges will exist operationally. So it's interesting. Obviously, we've built reporting into the Mega platform that resonates with us. Okay, so that's on the basis of how we look at business. But different people look at their business in different ways. So I would imagine that at certain points in time, we're going to have to work with customers in order to increase the visibility on the reporting side and the numbers that they have access to. I think that's the first thing. I would expect that to happen. In fact, from the first customer, I would expect them to turn around and say, okay, this is great, we're enjoying using it, but we need to see these numbers in the back end to allow us to be able to iterate and improve. Because it's not just a case of, there you go, there's a product. It's a case of, there's a product and let's improve it and let's continue to iterate against it. So that's the first thing. From an operational perspective, I think we need to train our customers. Right now, I know from experience in the industry of training that it's one, and again, training any technology is a challenge, and you have to find the right way to do it. And I think that it'll probably take 2 or 3 different iterations in order to get it to the point where we want to get it. But that's a commitment that we're willing to make to our customers so that they can take the technology and they can take it in the direction that they want to. But yeah, I think those are the 2 key elements, William. I think from an improvement perspective, you can only get access to these improvements through experience and actually working with the product with external customers. And I think that certainly the customers at the beginning of this journey, they'll be perfectly aware that we want their feedback and we want their input in order to have a continual improvement with the solution.
Thank you very much, Martin. I appreciate you taking the time out. And yes, some very fascinating responses, particularly on that last one. There's a few more questions I wanted to ask, but I'm wary of the fact we're 24 minutes deep. So it gets off-putting when you get beyond the half-hour mark for people to tune in. So thank you very much.
No, thanks for your time, William. Most enjoyable. All the best.
Cheers. I hope you enjoyed the podcast. If you want to watch more, why not subscribe to our channel somewhere here.